We had been married for 8 years and Ruyan and I never had a wedding. At first, she said having a wedding was too much trouble. She didn't need all that ceremony. Later, she said we were already like an old married couple, so there was no point in being pretentious. But on our 8th anniversary, she held a grand seaside wedding with her childhood sweetheart, making headlines across the city. I watched the video of my wife, dressed in a pristine white wedding gown, gently leaning into the arms of her first love. Everyone in attendance was laughing and celebrating, their faces filled with joy. I looked up from the dining table in front of me, where the meal I had reheated 10 times sat and touched. With a bitter laugh, I left a comment beneath the video. Wish you a long and happy life together and may you have children soon. Then I called my lawyer. When Ruyan came home, I had just hung up the phone with the lawyer. She looked exhausted, still wearing the dress from the wedding. The table from yesterday hadn't been cleaned, filling the summer air with a sour, rancid smell. Just like the scent clinging to Ruyan, she wrinkled her nose and covered it, looking disgusted. You didn't clean up the table? How did you become such a slob? Do you still look like the CEO of Liu Corporation? You're sloppy all the time now. It's embarrassing for me. Hurry up and clean this mess. You've turned the house into a pigsty. She glanced at the table again, looking even more dissatisfied. Why did you make so much food? Just because you're the CEO of Liu Corporation now doesn't mean you can be wasteful. Did you forget the hard days before you married me? I looked up at her. I just stared at her, expressionless. She must have felt guilty, because she brought up yesterday's wedding on her own. The wedding was just to fulfill Baiken's wish. He's not in good health. The doctor said we shouldn't stress him out, so we're trying to grant his last wish. I let out a cold laugh. Grant his wish, huh? So what if, one day, his wish is to take my place as your husband? Should I just hand it over to him too? Ruyan was at a loss for words. She hesitated. Why are you being so petty? Baiken would never think that way. He's just a sick man. Why are you even comparing yourself to him? A man being this jealous looks ridiculous. He would never want your position. Otherwise, would it have been your turn back then? So it wasn't that she didn't want to give it to him. It's that he didn't want it. But I couldn't believe that these words came from my wife. Ruyan, have you forgotten we've been married for 8 years and never had a wedding? Now you're holding another man's arm, having a grand wedding for the world to see. Where does that leave me? That wedding was fake. Why are you so hung up on it? Besides, look at yourself, being so petty at your age. What's the point of being sentimental? Just live a good life. After saying that, she angrily slammed the door and went into the bedroom. I'm certain she didn't even remember that yesterday was our 8th wedding anniversary. She's always like this. Never takes anything related to me seriously. She never wanted to be seen with me in public. To the outside world, I was just the CEO Liu Corporation had hired. No one in the company knew I was Ruyan's husband. How ridiculous. In the past, I thought keeping our marriage secret was a good idea. It made it seem like I didn't get the CEO position because of her. I even thought she was being considerate. But now I realize Ruyan probably thought I wasn't good enough for her, someone she couldn't show off. That's why for the past 8 years, we've barely had any dinners or dates together. I snapped back to reality, tittied up and got ready to head out for work. Just as I stepped out the door, my phone rang. It was another message from Baiken. How's it feel? As long as I want it, she'd do anything for me. Even the wedding you begged for over 8 years and never got. In the video, Ruyan gently bowed her head, tenderly putting the ring on his finger. Then the two shared a passionate kiss. I saved the video and blocked yet another one of his numbers. I've lost count of how many of these I've received. These videos, I get them every so often. The stars are always Ruyan and Baiken. They're watching the sunrise by the beach, kissing under a sky full of fireworks. Even in bed together at a hotel, Liu Baikin said. Even if you show these videos to Liu Ryan, it won't matter. She just call you petty and accuse you of making a fuss over nothing. Liu Ryan scales will never tip in my favor. Every time I used to see these videos, it hurt so much I could barely breathe. But this time, I saw them as evidence for the divorce and property settlement. I felt a sense of relief, even happiness, at having one more piece of evidence. There wasn't the slightest hint of anger or sadness anymore. As the workday was winding down, I received a call from Liu Ryan. It seemed she had just remembered what yesterday was. She blamed me, saying, "Why didn't you remind me that yesterday was our anniversary?" I stayed silent. "Fine. 9 and the others are meeting up tonight. Wait for me in the underground parking lot. I'll come pick you up." Before I could say anything, she hung up. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Wait, in the parking lot? Anyone listening might think I'm the side lover here. I didn't bother to respond to her. Half an hour later, she called again. "What are you doing? Why aren't you down yet? You're the CEO. Is this how slow your work efficiency is? Hurry up and come down. Everyone's waiting." I replied, "Wait for me at the company entrance. I'll be down in a minute." Su Yunqing. Everyone's getting off work right now. The place is packed. If someone sees us, they might start rumors. What are you thinking? I scoffed. I'm not your lover. I don't do sneaky business. If you don't want to wait, just go by yourself. In the end, Liu Ryan parked the car around the corner of the building. I opened the back door and got in. Liu Ryan scolded. "What's the meaning of this? Do you think I'm your driver?" I glanced at her, gesturing toward the passenger seat. She paused for a moment, then in a false tone of innocence said, "The last time Baikin and I went to play claw machines, he won that for me." After saying that, she couldn't resist throwing in a jab. "Unlike you, who only ever thinks about work. No passion for life at all." I didn't care at all about what she was saying. Just drive. Not only was the passenger seat filled with things, but even the back seat was cluttered with trinkets. Many of them were in pairs. I remembered when we first bought this car. I was excited and bought a bunch of cozy pillows and decorations for the interior, but Liu Ryan threw them all out. "This car is mine, not yours. Don't put things you like in my car. You're the kind of person who always wants everything, spending your days with these useless trinkets." After that, I never bought anything for the car again. Come to think of it, I rarely even rode in her car. Turns out, she's okay with someone else's things being in her car. That special person just wasn't me. When we arrived, Liu Ryan told me to go park the car. She went upstairs first. As I parked and approached the private room, I could hear the conversation inside. "Yesterday was your wedding anniversary, Ryan. You were off playing around with Baikin. Wasn't your husband jealous? Anyway, Yunqing will be here soon. You guys should apologize to him together." Liu Ryan's indifferent voice came through. "Why should we apologize to him? Who doesn't have a dream of a perfect wedding? I just didn't want the groom to be him, that's all." Gu Baikin chimed in arrogantly. "Back then, I was sick and went abroad for treatment. He took advantage of the situation and stole my place. Now, I just want to have a wedding with Ryan to fulfill my dream. Is that really too much to ask?" The others chimed in as well. "Exactly. We all know that deep down, you two have always been in each other's hearts. He just happened to take advantage of the situation. All right. Don't be upset anymore. We're all rooting for you two as a couple." Liu Ryan's close friends had known her for a long time. They never respected me, thinking that Gu Baikin and Liu Ryan were the true pair. I listened to their conversation without any expression, finally understanding why they could be friends. Then I pushed the door open and walked in. The moment they saw me, the room fell silent, their faces showing hints of guilt. Su Nian greeted me. "Come in, Yunqing. Sit next to Ryan." I glanced at the table, full of seafood and shrimp. Paused for a moment, while Gu Baiken sat boldly on Liu Ryan's other side, looking at me with a smug, provocative expression. Oh right, Yunqing, are you jealous or angry? Not long ago, I jokingly said I wanted a wedding, and Ryan didn't even hesitate to give me such a huge surprise. Though Yunqing, you shouldn't mind. It's all fake anyway. You know how bad my health is. I don't even know how much time I have left. That's why Ryan did this. As he spoke, Gu Baiken's eyes turned red, and Liu Ryan looked at him, full of concern. She softly reassured him. He's not upset. You're not well. Don't worry about all this. The two of them exchanged deep, emotional glances, completely ignoring everyone else at the table. Su Nian, trying to ease the tension, invited me to start eating. I didn't pick up my chopsticks. Liu Ryan assumed I was upset. It's hard for everyone to get together for a meal. So don't ruin the mood by looking so sour. Everyone turned to me with displeased expressions. I just shrugged indifferently. Sorry, I'm allergic to seafood, so I won't be able to enjoy this meal. Liu Ryan seemed to suddenly remember this, and the others also appeared to realize it. Looking awkward and embarrassed, I remembered a year ago. Because Gu Baiken loved seafood, Liu Ryan had specifically chosen a seafood restaurant. That time, the entire table was filled with raw seafood as well. I gently reminded them that I was allergic to seafood and couldn't eat it. But everyone thought I was being difficult with Liu Ryan, deliberately ruining the fun. Liu Banian, in particular, had no patience. Just eat a little, it won't kill you. What's with the fuss? Everyone else can eat it. You think you're that special, huh? They pressured me to eat. When I refused, she felt embarrassed and said, if you're not going to eat, then let's just get a divorce. I didn't want to get divorced, so I picked up my chopsticks and ate. Liu Ryan had smugly remarked, I knew you were just trying to make a scene. See, now you're behaving. But less than 10 minutes later, I broke out in hives and nearly went into shock. I ended up in the hospital for half a month. The table fell into an awkward silence. I spoke up at the right moment. Since I won't be able to enjoy the meal, I'll leave you all to it. I'll head out now. Liu Ryan seemed like she wanted to stop me. But before she could say anything, I left without a word, expressionless. I knew she wouldn't follow. Wherever Gu Baiken was, her eyes would always be on him. I wandered alone by the seaside. Feeling hungry, I stopped by a barbecue stand and had some grilled skewers and a bottle of beer. As the evening breeze blew, it felt like all my sadness was being carried away with the wind. Liu Ryan came home in the middle of the night. By then, I was already asleep. She didn't care and turned on the lights, yanked the blanket off me, and as if doing me a favor, tossed a small box at me. Here, stop being unreasonable. It's your anniversary gift. Half asleep, I opened the box. Inside was a branded watch. I noticed that Gu Baiken was wearing the same one earlier today. Only the cheap shine gave away the truth. The real one was given to another man, while the fake was for her husband. I didn't know whether Liu Ryan was trying to disgust me, or if she disgusted herself. I suddenly felt wide awake. The sleepiness was completely gone, and she, as if she had bestowed a great gift, held her head high. Stop ruining things for me in public. You're truly an embarrassment. How blind was I back then? To marry someone like you? Her eyes were full of disdain and contempt. I clenched my fingers, trying to suppress the last bit of pain in my heart. Then I laid back down and closed my eyes. Very well, Liu Ryan. We're finally nearing the end. The next day, Liu Ryan's mother called, asking me to come over for a meal. I already knew what I was walking into. When I arrived at the Liu family home, Gu Baiken and Liu Ryan were there as well. Inside, Gu Baiken and Liu's mother were chatting happily, like one big family. When they saw me walk in, Yunqing, you're here. Come, sit next to me. Liu's mother appeared warm and kind, but I knew her true intentions. Have you been busy with work lately? Don't worry. I gave them a good scolding for what happened at the wedding. They had no sense of boundaries, joking about such serious matters. You are still the son-in-law of the Liu family, and that will never change. So take good care of Ryan and manage the company well. Also, it's time you give us a grandchild. Otherwise, what's the point of Ryan marrying you? Liu's mother shot a sharp glare at Liu Ryan, as if issuing a warning. Liu Ryan looked defiant, but didn't argue back. Meanwhile, Gu Baikon's expression darkened, his face filled with hurt as he glanced at Liu Ryan. Liu's mother, pretending to be oblivious, kept smiling and talking to me. I knew! Her words were meant for Gu Baikon. She could tolerate him fooling around with Liu Ryan, but she would never let Ryan marry him. You see, even my mother-in-law didn't particularly value me. I was just another tool for the Liu family, but I think she's in for disappointment. Gu Baikon, pale-faced, left the room. Liu Ryan hurried after him. I took the chance to slip out as well, not far from the house. I saw Liu Ryan consoling a tearful Gu Baikon. She spoke to him in soft, soothing tones, her gestures gentle and caring. That was a side of Liu Ryan I had never seen. She always looked at me with disdain, telling me a real man bleeds but never cries. Stop being so annoying. When she noticed me perhaps feeling guilty, she quickly let go of Gu Baikon's hand. Don't take what my mom said to heart. I'm never going to have kids with you. And don't even think about complaining to her. Or else. Don't blame me if I divorce you. As soon as she said that, Gu Baikon shot me a smug grin. I looked at the two of them clinging to each other, my stomach churning with nausea. In our 8 years of marriage, Liu's mother had always pressured us to have a child, but Liu Ryan never cooperated, always saying one thing in front of others and doing another behind closed doors. She once coldly warned me, "Don't expect me to ever have a child with you." Years ago, though, we did have a child. I was ecstatic when I held the positive pregnancy test, rushing to tell her, but she looked completely indifferent and told me she had already scheduled a procedure for the next day. She was going to terminate the pregnancy. I was stunned, unable to believe what she was saying. In a desperate attempt to change her mind, I even got down on my knees and begged her, but she mercilessly went through with the abortion. I broke down and asked her why. She smiled brightly, but her words were the cruelest. "I only want to have children with Baikon. You're not worthy." At that moment, my heart turned to ashes. When Gu Baikon was later diagnosed with a medical condition that made it difficult for him to father children, I began to feel a glimmer of hope again. I thought that one day, she might want to have a child of her own, but after that incident, she never became pregnant again. It wasn't until later that I discovered she had been taking medication all along, because Gu Baikon didn't want her to have a child with me. Pulling my thoughts back to the present, I let a faint smile form on my lips. Don't wait anymore. Let's get a divorce. Liu Ryan froze, as if she hadn't heard me clearly. What did you say? Meanwhile, Gu Baikon looked overjoyed. I calmly repeated, staring at her. Liu Ryan, let's get a divorce. It wasn't until she saw the seriousness in my expression that she finally reacted, her face darkening. Su Yunqing, are you insane? Do you even know what you're saying? I know exactly what I'm doing now. I'll bring you the divorce papers later. Gu Baikon, satisfied, wrapped his arm around her waist. It took you long enough. Finally, you've gained some self-awareness. But to my surprise, Liu Ryan pushed him away forcefully. Let me tell you something. Don't think you can threaten me with divorce. I don't fall for that. What right do you have to bring up divorce with me? You think you're still some young, desirable guy? Look at yourself in the mirror. You're not getting any younger. Who would marry you after a divorce? I couldn't care less about any word she said. Her insults left me completely indifferent. Ruyan, furious, continued, "Fine, if you don't divorce, you're a coward. I'll be waiting for the day you come crawling back, begging me." With that, she stormed off, dragging Gubaikin with her. I took a deep breath. As expected, the air really does feel fresher without them around. On my way back, I received a message from the lawyer with the finalized divorce papers. I stopped by to print out 2 copies. When I got home, I started packing my things. I didn't have much, even though we'd been married for 8 years. Yet I had very few clothes. Because Ruyan always said, "Don't wear anything flashy. It'll damage Liu Corporation's image. And at your age, don't try to dress young." So I stopped buying the clothes I liked. Most of my wardrobe consisted of the same shirts and suits. Thinking about this, after I finished packing, I headed to the mall. I walked into a store and bought a green t-shirt and jeans. Looking at my reflection, I saw an old and tired version of myself. A man I barely recognized anymore. All because of something Ruyan once said. I spent 10 years as the CEO of Liu Corporation, gradually losing myself. From now on, I'll just be me. I'll just be Su Yunqing. That evening, Ruyan didn't come home, but Gubaikin posted on social media, "I'm finally going to marry the girl I love." The post was accompanied by a photo of him passionately kissing Ruyan. I thought soon I'd be free. Then I blocked Gubaikin and disabled all friend requests on WeChat. For the next half-month, I didn't see any sign of Ruyan. She was absent from the office as well. I was told she had gone out to find inspiration. I called her, and over the loud music on the other end, I heard her slurred, drunken voice. "Su Yunqing, get lost, get as far away as possible. I'm waiting for you to beg me. Even if you get down on your knees and beg, I'll never forgive you. Get lost." I calmly hung up the phone. There's no point in arguing with a drunk. Perhaps I had been too submissive in the past, too afraid of losing her, compromising time. And time again, I tolerated everything, making her think I could never leave her. 2 days later, Ruyan came back. Her clothes were wrinkled, and her face was bare without makeup. She looked completely exhausted. "Su Yunqing, all because I forgot our anniversary. You want to divorce me? Can you stop being so childish? Do you really think you'll find someone as good as me after I'm gone?" I couldn't help but laugh at her arrogance. Did she really think she was some kind of perfect wife? Sign the papers. She didn't expect me to be so resolute. "Fine, I'll sign. But why should I split my family's wealth with you? That's Liu family money. Over the years, even though you were the CEO, the company belongs to my family. And I've let you live the life of a high-status man for so long. What more do you want?" I couldn't believe how shameless Ruyan had become. Since she was heartless, I wouldn't show her any mercy either. "You cheated during our marriage. I'm already being generous by not taking everything from you. Do you really want me to expose all your dirty secrets?" She laughed, clearly unconcerned, obviously not believing I had any proof. So I sent her years' worth of messages from Gubaikin, along with their hotel records, her abortion from years ago, and the video from their recent wedding. I forwarded everything to both the Liu and Gu families. Liu's mother exploded in fury. She could tolerate Ruyan and Gubaikin's reckless behavior, but she would never allow Ruyan to marry him. Because of Gubaikin's health issues, she would never let her daughter marry someone so weak. How could I allow someone sick like him to ... And someone as incompetent as him could never marry Ruyan. Her eyes were sharp and cold. "You can divorce, but the financial settlement won't be as simple as following the agreement. After all, this company and this family are all supported by the Liu family." Listening to the mother and daughter's brazen arrogance, I couldn't help but laugh. Of course, they were all the same. Under my management, Liu Corporation had tripled in size compared to before I took over. "Liu, madam, Your daughter cheated. She's the one at fault. If you're unwilling to settle this fairly, I'm sure the media will be very interested in the personal affairs of your daughter. You dot. She was clearly frustrated, but didn't dare let Liu Ryan's scandal damage Liu Corporation's reputation. Over the years, I had cared for Liu Ryan, always putting her first. As for the company, even if I didn't deserve all the credit, I certainly worked hard. This money is what I rightfully deserve. The next morning at 10 a.m., I arrived at the Civil Affairs office, wearing my newly bought clothes and sporting a stylish haircut. Liu Ryan came with Gu Baiken. When she saw me, I noticed a flash of admiration in her eyes. Gu Baiken glared at me, worried that I might back out. But when I finally held the divorce certificate, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. As if the heavy stone that had been pressing on me was finally gone. I couldn't help but smile. Liu Ryan looked at me, her expression complicated. I'm waiting for the day you regret this. When you come crawling back to me, I won't forgive you. After she left, Gu Baiken, puffing up like a proud rooster, smugly said, I told you, you could never beat me. I knew I'd win. In the end, you still don't believe me, do you? Look at you now, walking away in defeat after our divorce. Ryan is mine. And Liu Corporation is mine too. I smiled brightly at him. Well then, I hope you get everything you wish for. Back at the office, I submitted my resignation to the board, letting them know they should find someone to take over my role. This job was never something I enjoyed anyway. I only took it on so Liu Ryan could have her freedom. I sacrificed myself for her. I moved into the small apartment I had bought before we got married. It wasn't big, but it was mine, a place I could call home. When my last day of work came and I finished handing everything over, I was surprised to see Liu Ryan waiting for me. She stopped me at the entrance of the company, speaking through clenched teeth. You're leaving the company? I nodded. You're really in such a hurry? Desperate to cut ties with me completely? Seeing coworkers glance over as they passed by. I didn't want to cause a scene. We can talk later. But she wouldn't let it go. Su Yunqing, go tell the board you're not resigning. I couldn't understand her behavior, and it was only making me more irritated. All I wanted now was for her to vanish from my life, to erase everything related to her. Liu Ryan, we're already divorced. I'm disgusted by everything that has to do with you. Just thinking about working in a company tied to you makes me want to vomit. And by the way, don't forget, I never signed a contract with Liu Corporation. I'm already doing more than enough by properly handing over my work. I've done my part. Her face darkened instantly at my words. The curious stares and murmurs of my coworkers grew louder. In the end, Liu Ryan couldn't handle it and fled in embarrassment. As soon as she left, some bolder colleagues approached me with questions. Su, what's your relationship with Miss Liu? She's my ex-wife. How long were you two married? Not too long. We just finished our 8th anniversary. The coworkers around me exchanged surprised glances. One looked at the other, and their faces showed nothing but shock. You two really kept that well hidden. We had no idea all this time. You never showed up together in public, so it makes sense we wouldn't know. And about that wedding Miss Liu had recently, I paused for a few seconds, then smiled and said, she always thought I wasn't good enough for her. That's why she never wanted to be seen with me. As for your next CEO, it might just be the groom from that wedding. My coworkers looked at me with sympathy. They couldn't help but turn around, whispering to each other. Who would have thought Miss Liu was such a terrible person? Exactly. 8 years of secrecy. And then she turns around and hooks up with another guy. It's really disgusting. One well-meaning coworker quietly offered me some comfort. Miss Liu has terrible taste. The groom looks like nothing but a pretty face. Doesn't look like he could handle any real responsibility. I shrugged unbothered and walked out of the company. I found a small shop near my apartment and opened a private kitchen. This was something I had always wanted to do. When we first got married, I once eagerly told Ruyan about my dream to open a restaurant, but all I got in return was disdain. What kind of future is there in opening a restaurant? Don't embarrass the Liu family. At the time, I didn't mind. I thought just being married to her was enough. But looking back now, she never really respected me. She only ever thought about herself. As the restaurant got busier, I hired a staff member. Business picked up, and I was happy every day. But 2 months later, the first person I ran into was Gubaikin. He looked a lot healthier, his complexion rosy. So you opened this little place, huh? Doesn't look like much. You're just destined to serve others. I didn't bother responding, but he kept talking. Ruyan is pregnant. Her mother is overjoyed. She agreed to let me start working at Liu Corporation tomorrow. I was a bit surprised. His smugness was practically radiating. Ruyan only ever wanted to have my child. We're getting married soon. What shocked me was that earlier, doctors had said he had a serious health condition, and there was a high chance it could be passed on to the baby. I couldn't believe Ruyan would still have a child with him. Well, congratulations then. Gubaikin, unsatisfied with my lack of reaction, found it boring and left. At 3 a.m., I was woken up by a call on WeChat. It was Sunayan. There was noise in the background on her end. Yunqing, could you come pick up Ruyan? She's had too much to drink and refuses to go home. She absolutely insists you come get her. Being woken from my sleep, I was in no mood to deal with it. I irritably replied, "Get things straight. We're divorced. Get her future husband to pick her up." Sunayan hesitated. She's had way too much to drink. If she drinks any more, she end up in the hospital. And she's pregnant. Can't you do it, just for the sake of your years together? Before she could finish, I cut her off. What does her going to the hospital have to do with me? To be honest, even if she died, I wouldn't show up to the funeral. Tell her to stop contacting me. It's bad luck. I hung up the phone, blocking everyone related to Ruyan. Not long after, I heard from an old coworker that she and Gubaikin had officially registered their marriage. I just laughed it off. One day, I was in the kitchen working on a new dish when my staff told me someone was looking for me. To my surprise, it was Ruyan. She was dressed in wrinkled clothes, her face pale. "What are you doing here?" I asked impatiently. She looked extremely emotional when she saw me. "Yunqing, I finally found you. How have you been?" I didn't hold back. "Since I left you, I've never been better." She looked exhausted. "I'm not well. Without you, my life has fallen apart. Now I realize you were the one who was right for me all along. My life is a mess without you. Husband, can you come back to me?" In the past, she never called me husband. She always addressed me by my full name. I was speechless. "Ruyan, if you're sick, go get treated. Your husband is at home." "Aren't you still pregnant with his child?" "He's not my husband." "You are." "I don't love him anymore. I want you back." "He's useless. Always paranoid and insecure. He can't even cook." "I'm pregnant. And yet I still have to take care of him. Now I realize how well you took care of us. Let's get back together." Her eyes were filled with hope, longing for a reconciliation. I couldn't describe how I felt at that moment. It was as if I had swallowed a fly utterly disgusting. "Ruyan, do you even know what you're saying? You think I was a good husband just because I could cook? Just because I could clean? Then why don't you just hire a maid? Why get married in the first place? After all these years, you still don't understand how to respect people. Listen to the nonsense you're saying. Right now, you're hurting not just one person, but two." Her face turned ashen, her brow furrowed tightly. "But we were fine before. It's his fault I lost you. If he hadn't kept talking badly about you to me every day, I wouldn't have fallen into his trap. I'll divorce him right now. Let's start over, okay? I'm begging you." Though I had never hit a woman, at that moment I couldn't hold back. I slapped her across the face without thinking. Ruyan, you disgust me. Get out. I don't ever want to see you again. But then, as if possessed, she suddenly grabbed my hand. You always wanted a wedding, didn't you? I'll arrange it. I'll give you the grandest wedding you've ever seen. And a child. We'll have a beautiful child together. Let me go. I shook her off violently. Hearing the commotion, Joe Chet, my employee, rushed out from the kitchen. The moment Ruyan saw her, her eyes turned bloodshot. Who is she? Is it because of her? Is she the reason you're rejecting me? You don't want to get back together with me because of her, right? What's so great about her? She's just a frumpy old woman. Hearing her words, I found it even more absurd. If you don't leave now, I'm calling the police. Ruyan gave me one last deep look. I'll definitely make you come back to me. After she left, I rubbed my temples, trying to clear my head. Jo Cha looked at me with concern on her face. I'm fine. Just treat her like a crazy person. And I'm sorry for dragging you into this mess. To my surprise, she responded seriously. It's okay. I actually thought you looked really cool when you told her off. I paused for a moment, but didn't think much of it. The next day, as soon as I arrived at the shop, the florist next door delivered a bouquet, a large one, with a note written in Ruyan's handwriting. I felt a wave of nausea. I threw it straight into the trash. For the next half month, I received a bouquet every day, right on time. All of them red roses. I couldn't help but find it ironic. For years, every Valentine's Day and on her birthday, I used to give her red roses, but she always looked at them with disdain, tossing them aside without a second thought. Later, she would even criticize me openly. Stop wasting time with this. You think copying other people and giving flowers makes you romantic? Aren't you disgusted with yourself? But when Gubaikin gave her flowers, she accepted them with joy. I told the florist not to deliver anything else. I don't like flowers. But the next day, a courier delivered an expensive ring, then a watch. A suit followed. I rejected them all. Later, he started ordering food. He ordered every day, and with a righteous tone, he said she liked the food. I remember before, whenever I made a new dish, I would excitedly ask her to try it, but she didn't even take a bite, looking at it with disdain. So ugly. It doesn't even look good. It's not worthy of me at all. A few days later, she suddenly told me she wanted to eat my cooking. I started preparing early in the morning, so that by the time she woke up, she could take it with her. For several days in a row, I would try different dishes for her. But in the end, it was through Gubaikin's social media that I saw those meals I had so carefully prepared for her. That was when I realized she had never eaten them. Gubaikin. This is the worst food I've ever had. Everyone beware. Ruyan even commented below. Next time, I'll make it up to you and take you out for something delicious. Now, if she wants to order, let her. Who would say no to money? This whole series of actions from Ruyan finally led to Gubaikin angrily coming to confront me. I knew you weren't over her. You even came to seduce Ryu. Do you know she's married? She's about to become someone else's wife. Don't you have any shame? At that moment, he reminded me of myself a few years ago. Back then, I too had questioned Ruyan like this. Even knowing she was married, she still tangled with other men. Only now, the roles had changed. Could this be Gubaikin's karma? He had tried so hard to take my place. And in the end, he turned into the person I once was. Fate really plays tricks on people. Thinking of this, I fired back without hesitation. Ruyan, a woman like her. Only you would treat her like a treasure. I'm not interested. Also, if you can't control her, don't come here to cause trouble. Push me too far. And don't blame me for putting your past on the internet. Gubaikin was startled. worried about his newly acquired position as the CEO of Liu Corporation. He quickly left. Being repeatedly harassed by Gu Baiken and Liu Ruyan had already worn me out, and with the recent success of the store's business, I was thinking about opening a new branch. Yuncheng is a city with beautiful scenery. I leisurely strolled through the alleyways. As a breeze brushed past my ears, I felt an unprecedented calm in my heart. Right then and there, I made a decision. I used the divorce settlement to buy a small courtyard nearby. It caught my eye immediately. Then I rented a cafe near the courtyard, planning to make desserts there. Once the renovations were set, I hurried back to Yuncheng to organize everything. Little did I expect, there was an even bigger surprise waiting for me. That day, we received a large order at the store, a catering request for a gathering. Due to being short-staffed, we almost worked through the night to complete it. The next day, we rushed to deliver it. When we arrived, I was stunned by the wedding photos at the venue. They were of me and Liu Ruyan from our wedding years ago. In an instant, I understood everything. I wanted to leave, but Liu Ruyan had already walked out. She was wearing a white evening gown, holding a bouquet in her hands. Standing beside her were Sunayan and the others. Liu Ruyan slowly walked up to me, kneeling on one knee and offering the flowers to me. Yanqing, this is the proposal I meticulously prepared for you. Are you satisfied? Please give me another chance, okay? I looked around at the wedding decorations, luxurious and grand. Clearly, a lot of money had been spent. But it wasn't my style. For 8 years, I had told her countless times what my dream wedding would be like. But she never remembered. I laughed mockingly. Didn't you say, even if I begged you after the divorce, you wouldn't turn back? What's the meaning of all this now? She hesitated for a moment, then bent the other knee as well. Is this enough? Husband, as long as you're willing to give me a chance, I'll do whatever you want. Don't worry. I've already explained everything to Gu Baiken. I've also aborted the baby. I'll only have children with you. I let out a cold laugh. Liu Ruyan, no matter what you do, I will never forgive you, nor do I ever want to see you again. You're too filthy and disgusting. Now, even looking at you makes me want to vomit. I turned to leave, but she suddenly lunged forward and clung to my leg. I'll change. Husband, from now on, I'll listen to everything you say. There's only you in my heart. I truly know I was wrong. We've been together for 8 years. Please don't leave me just like this. I was about to kick her away when a voice boomed. Liu Ruyan, what are you doing? Gu Baiken's heart-wrenching roar echoed from behind me, his face pale as a sheet. With a face full of anger, Gu Baiken pulled Liu Ruyan aside. Liu Ruyan, are you even human? I've loved you for so long, and this is how you treat me? Seeing her unresponsive, he turned and cursed at me instead. You scum! It's all your fault. We're already married. Why did you have to show up? I'll kill you, you wretch. She's my wife. He was so furious that he lunged at me to hit me. I sidestepped, dodging his attack, but Liu Ruyan got up and forcefully pushed him away. He stumbled back, looking at Liu Ruyan in disbelief. You actually hit me? Do you not love me anymore? He tried to grab Liu Ruyan again, but she slapped him hard. Gu Baiken, unable to take it, struck back as well. People nearby quickly rushed over to break up the fight. Amid the chaos, I left without looking back. A month later, I had already settled down in Yuncheng. That day, there was an interview at the cafe, and to my surprise, it was Zhou Che. I was shocked and asked, how did you end up here? Didn't you say you had another opportunity? She smiled and said, the boss here is generous, so I decided to follow. Brother Yanqing, will you hire me? I smiled and agreed. She then told me that after Liu Ruyan pushed Gu Baiken that day, He ended up in the hospital and is still in the ICU. Now, the Liu and Gu families are at each other's throats due to mistakes Gu Baiken made while he was in charge. Liu Corporation is on the verge of bankruptcy. The Liu family can barely protect themselves now. It's nearly impossible for them to make a comeback. At that time, I was learning to make desserts, and upon hearing all of this, I felt nothing inside. The past was already behind me. There are a lot of good days waiting for me in the future.